Everyone, let's say hello and give a round of applause to the first Chrysler on this channel. As we all know, the early 2000s was a very influential time for automotive design, good and bad. Let's take a look at why this odd contraption has gained such a cult following, especially in the past few years. Why? This PT Cruiser in particular, thankfully does not belong to anyone that I know. This is a 2005 PT Cruiser Touring Edition. The Touring trim adds some stunning features like a CD player, power windows, power locks, and keyless entry. This bad boy has 112,000 miles on it, which isn't that much. You can see it has quite a patina on it, and you'll probably see this at the closest buy here, pay here dealership because this is a wholesale car. The PT Cruiser came out for the 2001 model year, and it's loosely based on the Dodge Neon, not directly, but it does share some parts. And for some reason, this was named 2001 Motor Trend's Car of the Year. And this was chosen as one of the top 10 cars in Car and Driver's top 10 car list of 2001. Huh? These were available in many different trim levels. This one is on the lower end of the spectrum because it's a touring model, but you could even get a turbocharged GT model. These were also available in two different configurations. That means that they had many markets for this car, but you could either get it as this 5-door hatchback or a convertible, a soft top convertible if you want a top-down PT experience. The door handles are worth mentioning because you can't pull on them. It's actually a button. So that's kind of an old car element that I find cool. But the PT Cruisers were available with many different engine options, all varying, well, all 4 cylinders over their course of their lifespan and also across the globe. But we only got 2 4-cylinders in the US. One of them was that 2.4 turbo that was in the PT Cruiser GT. Or there's this. Most of them will have this engine. Unfortunately, and also maybe fortunately, but it's a 2.4 liter dual overhead cam 4-cylinder. It makes a stout 150 horsepower and 162 pound-feet of torque. Power only goes to the front wheels, and you could choose either a 5-speed manual transmission or a 4-speed automatic. This one has the automatic. In continuation of the funky design of the PT Cruiser, Chrysler did offer a few different wheel options. Most of them, especially lower trims, will have these 15-inch steel wheels with hubcaps. Real nice, huh? But GT trims and even limited and some higher trims could get 16-inch or maybe even 17-inch alloy wheels, some with chrome faces. God, what a weird looking car. But I'm assuming this is probably because it's a touring, so a lower end of the PT Cruiser lineup, but there's no power trunk release in this. You actually have to turn the key and then lift it up, just like an old car. I mean, maybe that's some of the old roots of this car coming in, but I don't know. I do have to commend this car for being practical though, because there's a lot of configurations that you could set your PT Cruiser up in the trunk. First of all, there's 19 cubic feet of volume behind the 60-40 split second row seat. But there's also this really durable feeling cargo divider. Well, it's a cargo divider, it's also a parcel shelf, but there's all these configurations that you could set this thing up in. You could also even turn this into a table. I just don't know where the legs are. You could use its highest setting that makes it like a tonneau cover, and also a pretty strong parcel shelf. There's also a lower mode, and there's a flat mode. There's a few different modes you could set this up in, but if you fold the second row seat down, you have up to 64 cubic feet of volume, which is pretty big, especially considering the size of this. The load floor is also pretty low, and the spare tire seems like it's actually underneath the car because there's this little bolt that you have to crank, just like a truck, to drop it. I did want to show you how the second row seat folds because it's actually pretty clever. The first thing that you have to do is drop the seat back flat. So that's how it folds, but it doesn't make the trunk flat. There's another lever towards the bottom of the seat that you pull, and then that unlocks the back side of this, and then it flips up. So that gives you that 64 cubic feet of volume. I actually haven't gotten into the back of this car though. Step-in height, pretty easy to get in and out of. Let's see. The door doesn't rattle when you close it, so that's a nice sign. I'm 5'9". The driver's seat is in the position that I sit in. I have about an inch of legroom. For the size of this car, it's not that bad. My feet fit under the seat pretty nicely. I'm actually pretty reasonably comfortable, but for adults, at least on longer trips, longer journeys, I think only 2 of me would fit back here. There's no center armrest. There's only one map pocket in the back. No cup holders, no rear zone for the climate control, but headroom is pretty abundant because of the weird shape of this car. And the window switches are on the floor. It's like we're in a Wrangler. One step closer to actually driving this pile. But the driver's seat isn't too bad. Step-in height, just like the back, is pretty decent as well. The seats are comfortable. Like, you know, old car seats are always going to be comfortable, but these are really not supportive at all. They're only manual seats. I don't even think you could get power seats on a PT Cruiser, but you do have these minivan style armrests, which are pretty handy. Right off the bat, the steering wheel really does scream retro. It's a 4-spoke wheel. It's not leather wrapped. One of the first things I noticed when I got into this car is how easily interchangeable this looks to be a right-hand drive and a left-hand drive car, because they do sell, well, they did sell the PT Cruiser in foreign markets. This interior screams plastic. Early 2000s Chrysler was all about plastic, especially in the lower end cars. Thankfully, the gauges are pretty simple and easy to read. There's not much information on them. There's no trip computer in the PT Cruiser, but you do have a fuel gauge, coolant temperature, speedo, and tach. The tach revs up to 6,000 RPM. The window switches are just like a Wrangler in the front as well. They're up here, and you know, the Chrysler window switches, but they're auto down, but not auto up. That's okay. The head unit, you'd find this from a WJ Grand Cherokee, like early 2000s. It's that like 1.5 DIN. This has single zone climate control, works very nicely because it's all manual controls. I do like that. The shifter for the 4-speed automatic is very old school as well. This has a glove box, a mirror, but it's not auto dimming, no sunroof, no map lights. It does have sun visors, and they do slide. That is something cool. No visor lights. It's a pretty basic car, but I think let us have the privilege of driving this now. Oh no, actually, before we set off, because I know you're not even in a rush to see me drive this. The seats, like I said, are full manual, both of them, no power, no lumbar or anything. But the passenger seat does have this little compartment which likes to rattle in the car when you're stopped. But it is a pretty deep compartment though. One of the first few things that I observed with the PT Cruiser is how much it vibrates in here. Just especially when you're at a stop, there's a lot of vibration. I don't know if the motor mounts on this one are bad. It doesn't feel like it because it doesn't vibrate like motor mounts, but it's a piece of shit. Throttle response is pretty decent, but you can hear the engine is pretty loud. Let's get on the power here. I mean, like, it's not, I don't know, it's not bad. I've driven cars that are slower than this, but of course, this is not gonna be fun to drive. You can see how much I'm already just like, you know, moving around in the chair. The main complaint that I have with this engine is how loud it is. And I feel like the car was like this when it was new. It does, I don't want to say it handles pretty decently, but the steering has a nice weight to it that gives you some confidence. It's not like a loosey-goosey type thing. It's pretty responsive to steering inputs, but it's not sporty in anyway. Like, it's not the slowest thing in the world, but it's so dreary. Not even in a like mean way. I just can progressively feel myself getting more depressed the longer I drive this car. Ah, God. Surprisingly, there's not that much wind noise. There is not that much road noise either, and this is on some pretty cheap tires as well. Yeah, you know, like pushing it, it's not that bad. It's actually, it handles pretty decently once you start to like go around corners with it. It's just, you really do feel, you feel a little bit of the body roll, of course, once you start pushing a car. But you really like just move around in the seats so much. I just find it interesting how this got Car of the Year for 2001. I've driven a lot of cars from 2001. I mean, I was born in 2001. This is like one of the top 10 best cars that was out in 01? Interesting, you know? So I am thrilled to tell you that I still don't think you should buy one of these. I don't see why people bought them new. I mean, I'm not even in the designated market for this, so I can't even talk, but I do have to say I am happy that I've finally driven a PT Cruiser, because this was the very first time I've been bequeathed with such an opportunity. But thank you for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. I'll see you all in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye, peeps.